ready?
I'm ready.
Okay.
응답하라 여친. Go to the into the shit.
Back to the gung to the Jew. Okay.
A little bit of a different setup today because we
Yes.
have a very special in-studio guest, and she is here with us today. She's Dr. Jaki Yi. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm
Dr.
so excited to be
Jaki
here.
is a professor of psychology at University of Washington, Bothell,
Mhm.
and we've just been listening a little bit to your background and story. I'm just so excited to get into it. But Dr. Jaki, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you came to be in Seattle.
Wonderful. Thanks so much for having me both. And you can call me Jackie.
Okay.
Jackie.
I ask my students to call me Professor Yi, or, if I want to put on my researcher hat, I call
Mhm.
myself Dr. Yi. But yeah, I'm a psychology professor at UW Bothell.
Yeah.
I got my PhD in clinical community psychology in 2023 at University of Illinois.
Mhm.
And now I'm on the tenure track professor journey. I study and teach about Asian American psychology primarily.
Yeah.
And I believe we connected through social media, which I've just
Yeah.
recently started my social media journey
Yeah.
around. So, I share things about Asian American psychology,
Mhm.
connect it to pop culture. and all
Yeah,
that.
your videos are so good. Again, Ellen introduced me to your content, and I was just going on this scroll yesterday looking at all the books you were recommending,
Yes.
and you have, I think you've pretty mastered like that short form content format of
Yeah.
just giving really rich
Thank you.
wisdom and
It looks like
kind
you've
of
been doing it for years,
questions,
Really,
yeah, and very
especially in the
comfortable on
summer.
camera, which speaks to you teach in the classroom, so
That helps.
yeah,
for
and
sure.
you have the
Mhm.
subject that you teach is you have to connect with people,
Yeah.
and yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I found that, I really wanted to be able to share research and things I'm teaching in the classroom to the
Mhm.
public because oftentimes, you'll write a paper
Yeah.
on some findings that you find about Asian American communities and then no one reads it. It's just locked behind a paywall,
Yeah.
behind library, accounts. And I just wanted to be able to share that research with the public. So that was kind of my
Yeah.
main goal for doing that.
Mhm.
As well as, just other goals of wanting to write a book one day
Mhm.
and just being able to see that social media is such a powerful tool to
Yeah.
get your
Yeah.
message out there.
Was it
And
a little
so,
annoying though? Because like now it's like
Mhm.
demanded of you.
Yes.
Like
Right.
I hear that from
Your
everybody.
comments,
If
like,
you want to write a book, you have to
Yep.
have a first social media presence.
Oh,
Mhm.
yeah.
Academia too. I mean, it used to be like academic Twitter was the main thing for professors to like put their work out there. Now, Twitter's changed so much
Yeah.
and now
Yeah.
it's all about like, having an IG presence and a TikTok presence and all of
Oh.
that.
Yeah.
So at
not
first,
just limited to your field, but
No, I think so many different fields. I mean,
Okay.
psychology in particular, there's so much like pop psych, debunking
Yes.
myths about mental health
Yes.
that needs to be done, but like public health and just science in general, right? Like
yeah,
it helps when there's experts in the field sharing their expertise in that
Yeah.
public way because there's just so much
But I think it's
misinformation out
more
there.
about visibility. Like
And
Mhm.
visibility.
especially
yeah.
companies that are looking for people to publish, they're like, you need visibility,
And
we
that's
need
the
to-
thing.
Yeah.
Usually it's like the book deal gives you that name recognition, but almost it's
Right.
flipped
Yeah.
in today's
Yeah.
world where you have
Yeah.
to have that following
Mm-hmm.
before, almost, as a prerequisite to get
Absolutely.
book
Which
deal.
it's challenging. But
Yeah.
I mean, I've had a lot of help along the way, actually. I mean, I wouldn't have started doing so I started in the summer, which was great because in the summer I
TikTok,
don't have
you mean,
to
or
teach
social media?
social media
Yeah.
totally because
You didn't have any of it before.
nothing. I was starting
Wow.
from total scratch. And it was good to start in the summer because I didn't have to teach. I had more
Yeah.
time. And now that the semesters and all of it started,
Mhm.
it's so hard to keep up consistently
yeah.
posting.
Yeah.
But yeah, in the summer, so my brother actually he's on TikTok. He actually just quit his day job
Oh,
and
what?
became
He's
a full-time
TikToker?
content
With the follow
creator.
him.
What is
What's
his
his-
his handle?
So his handles it's Ben Kang.
wait.
Ben what? You guys know him? Stop! Wait, you know him? That's my brother.
My husband's Ben Kang.
So
So
Ben
there's-
Kang. Kang
Okay.
Soo. Yeah.
Wait,
Oh
wait,
my
wait.
gosh, there is
They're
a
spelled the same.
Yeah.
His Korean name's Kang Soo.
So
So he
his-
did it's Ben Kang, but our last name is Yi and so
Oh,
that would be-
funny.
Oh, that's so
Okay.
funny.
You don't know.
Okay, I need
Okay.
to look at it. Is he
So
he does
he's a
TikTok primarily?
IG. He
No, I
does
thought
K-pop.
his name was Ben Kang. So then I
K-pop.
thought,
That
oh my
would be
god,
crazy.
what are the chances?
That would be crazy.
Okay,
I
okay,
know,
okay.
I
Yeah.
know. Is it
Oh, funny.
spelled? How is it spelled?
BEN or
Wait,
ITS
uh-huh.
BENKANG.
What's
Yeah,
his
that's
account about?
K-pop?
Oh,
So
Wow.
he's 2 years older than me. So
Oh,
we're both in
really?
our
Okay.
30s. And
Well,
He
and
quit his day
he
job to
just
cover
quit his day job.
K-pop.
And over Christmas, our
Oh my
family
God, what
was
is the hardest
talking
thing
about
now
it.
to, like,
And
wait,
they're
well,
what is
I
the
am
supportive.
most
gonna
They're
popular
follow
one?
him.
I feel like IG and
That
yeah,
is
he's a K-pop DJ. He's a K-pop like kind of
Wow.
info like educator.
I'm
So I'm so
excited.
proud of him, and he really inspired me to like.
What?
He showed me the ropes, right? He showed me how to set up your camera, how to have like a hook,
wow.
how to do all of it.
Oh
So
my
I had the
gosh.
Ben
support of
Yee,
my
but
family.
his
Yeah.
Oh
wow.
my
Okay,
goodness.
I'm
So
excited.
that was really
Oh,
helpful.
yeah.
And
So that's really funny because his handle is Ben.
yeah,
It's Ben
Come.
Kang, and then
Yeah.
just Ben Kang is my husband.
That's so
Yeah,
funny.
yeah.
Okay,
What is that?
gotcha.
Okay,
That
doesn't that
way.
feel a little bit like, whoa?
That's
it
cool.
felt it
Mhm.
feels very
Yeah.
serendipitous.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
she was meant
Oh,
to be here
nice.
today.
Yeah, right?
Amazing.
We're big on signs. So
That's
I'm like, this
awesome.
was meant to be.
Yeah.
Yay.
But I do have to
Mhm.
talk to you about what caught my eye
Sure. Yeah.
was your
Mhm.
most popular TikTok, which was about H Mart Gay.
H Mart Gate,
H
which we
Mart.
talked about
Yeah,
a few
and,
episodes ago.
A
Mhm.
certain creator's acknowledgement of how do you want to summarize it?
I mean, I think you've already summarized like what H Mart Gate is,
Yeah,
right? And most
yeah.
people are familiar.
We
but-
have, but basically, this big Asian American creator went online and said,
Mhm.
"I had no idea
Mm.
that you could have, you know, be saying like white people need to like call out white people, and also at the
Mhm.
same time be helping white people."
Yes.
And
Mhm.
and she was like, "How can these things coexist?" Like,
Mm.
oh, I don't know, maybe like we humans are capable of multiple thoughts.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
Sorry. Full transparency.
Yeah.
I've had a little bit of issues with this creator personally, but also on
okay.
in the form. I've always felt that the commentary she makes is too surface level.
Mm.
But yeah, like to see someone
Mm.
like on TikTok at a grown age say like, I cannot believe that these two thoughts can coincide or coexist.
Mm-hmm.
Not coincide, sorry, coexist in
Mhm.
a person. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Like this just occurred to you?
But what
Mhm.
I loved about your take, Jackie, was that it wasn't about that big creator. It wasn't about any creator.
Yeah.
It was about like she's not the only one
Totally.
with this misconception.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
there's research to back it up as to why we have these
Absolutely.
misconceptions.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. As soon as I saw that creator's video explaining kind of how can one person pander to white people, but
That's
also
right. That's
right
the
like
pander to white people and also
Mhm.
call out white people. That's right.
that really just set an alarm bell off in my head of like this is internalized racism at work. And just as an observer of like the
yeah.
whole discourse on H Mart
Yeah.
Gate, it's just so interesting to see what the Asian American community really grapples with when it comes
Yes.
to understanding race and
No, it's so
racism.
true.
And when that was just put so perfectly of like this is an example of how internalized racism like uniquely is experienced by Asian
Yes.
Americans, where oftentimes Asian Americans are put in kind of the middle of the racial hierarchy in the
Yeah.
US, where on one hand people say Asians are honorary white people, they are
Yeah.
the model minority, and that they're this problem-free minority that doesn't experience racism. And then on the other hand, they're people of color who experience marginalization and discrimination.
Mhm.
And so it's that interesting kind of unique middle role that Asian
Mhm.
Americans play in this country that really leads itself to experiencing those psychological effects of like, where do I belong and who do I side with? And that's kind of how
Totally.
internalized racism often
And then you
manifests.
see
Yeah.
like the spectrum in terms of between generations.
Yeah,
Like
sure.
my mom's generation, my mom came as an immigrant when she
Mhm.
was 10.
Mm.
So there's a lot there where they did experience very overt racism.
Mhm.
I grew up with a mom who would call out what she felt was
Mm.
microaggressions,
Mm.
and I would be so embarrassed but
Mm.
at the same time proud. But then
Now
I
looking
found
back, yeah.
myself wanting to do the same thing
Mm.
when I was grown up,
Mm.
and then
Mhm.
feeling gaslit or dumb
Yeah.
when, let's say, like a white man is looking at me and like, oh my gosh, what did you just accuse me of?
Mm-hmm.
No, you know, that type of thing. And then also, I think depending on where geographically where you grew up, right? I grew up in
Totally a
Southern
factor.
California, LA. Ellen
Interesting.
grew up in Washington. You grew up in New York on the East Coast. So there's so
And then
many
lived in the
differences
Midwest.
and
Yep.
yes, subtleties in our lived experiences.
Absolutely.
I'm interested to know kind of the patterns that you see online of how this plays out of internalized racism. Like what are some things that you're noticing?
Yeah, I mean, those are amazing observations, right? Of like generational differences, regional differences. I would also say ethnic differences because
Yes.
Asian Americans are not a monolith,
No.
right? Like
Right.
such a diverse group of experiences. And that's something I really study and try to pay attention to in my research is not lumping together all Asian Americans into one. And what's interesting is that like online, it seemed like it was mostly East Asians, right?
Yeah.
Korean, Chinese, Japanese, East Asians, which comes with an interesting level of privilege given
Yes.
maybe skin tone or just experiences of being seen as honorary whites or model
Right.
minorities, right? The model minority myth actually was created in mind with Chinese and Japanese Americans in particular in the 60s. So, I mean, that narrative has continued to bleed on. So, and you see like a huge rise, unfortunately, in anti-Asian discrimination against South Asians in this moment, particularly. So we are not a monolith. So
No.
I've seen a lot of the discourse being around like, especially Koreans, as Korean Americans, I'm so curious to hear your experiences too. But with the like the surgence of like K-pop and K-drama, the K-wave, there's an interesting thing going on where there's this certain level of privilege that comes with the media representation, but also flips itself on the head of potentially perpetrating
for
things.
sure.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about when we talked about this around Halloween with all the roomies, little roomies running around with their K-pop Demon Hunter wigs, and you know my daughter was one of them. But then you think about how when we grew up, it's like it was kind of embarrassing to say, "Oh, I listened to K-pop." It wasn't even called K-pop. I listen to. I don't listen to music on the radio. I listen to
Big
Korean
Bang,
groups.
21.
Yeah.
Yep.
Bang.
So it is so interesting, right? Like, because now we're experiencing being mainstreamed.
Yes.
Like our culture and the stuff is like being consumed and mainstream, and so we're in this unique, just like you said, position of privilege, but at times it's disorienting because you're still Asian. You still, you know, you still are othered or at times exoticized. And I went to a good friend of mine in my neighborhood had a mahjong party.
Okay.
Have you ever played mahjong?
I love mahjong.
Okay.
I can win.
But did you play like the American mahjong?
No, I play the full Asian mahjong.
And so I learned, like, this is my first foray into mahjong, and it's like the American kind.
American kind.
What's the American kind?
It's American mahjong, so they have their own standardized rules. and
What?
stuff. Yeah.
No,
Are
I
the
play Filipino
characters
style.
There are
and-
characters, but, you know, so like you know, there's like all the different suits, right? Like the bamboo.
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
I'm forgetting the other one. And then there's like the characters. But I could recognize, oh, those are like the Chinese characters for numbers 1 through 9.
Okay.
But then the tiles are also marked 1, like in.
Oh,
in
so
numbers,
when
like
you're
1
when
through
it's
9.
marked, you're calling it Americanized?
No. The way they play is
How do they
American
play?
mahjong. I don't know how to explain it because it's like, you know,
Do you play like you have to get like 10 pairs
4 people
and 3?
So they have a card with all the different, you know, hands that you could have, like the winning hand.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But it was interesting for me to observe because I felt simultaneously like, should I be here? But
Was it
like,
mostly
what is
white
my
people?
role here?
Oh,
It was just like an intimate group, and yeah, it was interesting. And I'm like, this is an interesting time I'm living in, you know?
right? Because we're living through the processing stage. We're not like seeing the end result. We're like actually, it's happening in before our eyes, and we're living through the streamlining process, and that is a bizarre. Like, it's weird to be almost commercialized.
Yes.
Your culture is being repackaged to be sold to the masses.
I'm curious to know what you're seeing in the classroom. Like what kinds of, what kind of are the conversations your students are having? What kinds of students are, enrolling in your classes? And
yeah, well, I mean, right now it's Gen Z is kind of in the college classroom, and it's an interesting time to be in higher ed for sure, with it being defunded left and right. AI, right, is just, in the last 2 years of me teaching, it's been just a wild ride of like different policies and different viewpoints, but generally speaking, around like kind of when I teach my like Asian American psych class, though, it is interesting like seeing I will say in Seattle, teaching students in this area, it feels quite progressive. We're in a progressive bubble, which especially for someone who is a race scholar, like that is, I feel like I'm in the right place there. But my students are really critically conscious and aware of kind of some of these online discourses. And what's exciting is seeing like a lot of students be really interested in kind of Korean American identity, Korean experiences, bringing in kind of that K cultural piece to it. And actually in the spring I'm teaching a course on counseling psychology where I'm going to collaborate with a university in Korea. And we're actually going to compare and talk about the mental health crisis in Korea versus the US and different cultural factors that are playing. And a lot of students are really interested to learn about
Which university?
University of Washington, Bothell campus.
No, from Korea.
In Korea, Inha University. It's in Incheon.
Okay.
And they're teaching at the same
Actually,
time.
I think my uncle teaches there.
Oh, wow.
Small world.
Yeah.
Okay.
Small world.
Wow.
Yeah. So
That's
students
exciting.
are excited, students are interested, but it's interesting to hear when someone has a very only positive view about this recent kind of K-wave, right? Of like, it's oh my gosh, you guys are so lucky that your culture's being spotlighted and
spotlighted.
I mean, my parents too, right? Like they'll only see it as like a really positive thing of like, look how cool it is to be Korean. I mean, my dad actually he grew up in Seattle. He went to UW, and and so he says like it's just such a world of difference, like growing up in the 70s as the only Korean kid in the area,
right?
and now you guys get the privilege of all this. But I mean, one of the pushbacks of that is again that dissonance, right? You can have that pride, but also be concerned that is this for just capital gain? Is this just a moment in time that we're going to be used and discarded? And we saw through COVID, right? Like at any point, they can come for you, right? Like, and we're seeing that with ICE too, right? So like, there's so much societal impacts that we need to be thinking about too. Other than just on its surface, it looks great that Korean culture is being spotlighted.
Right.
Yes,
Actually,
and other stuff.
Speaking of that dissonance, I do have a question. I feel like one of the most very obvious way that you see that dissonance quite often in my culture is Korean women being married to white men. And I mean, it just so happens that the creator that talked about it is also a Korean woman married to a white man.
Okay.
But from your perspective, right? Because I get really annoyed. And we've talked about this. We have many friends that are married to white men.
Okay.
And there's a spectrum, right?
Yes.
But quite often, I have to vet these people. Like, I have my own, like, little system. Like, for example, if they say things like, why do you think I married a white guy? That is like, okay, you are not going to be in my inner circle.
There's no, like, level of awareness. That is
I mean, but is it wrong? Or would you say with your background, do you notice it a lot too? Right? Like,
Of
okay.
Of course.
How do you? I want to ask you. I get very irate. But I understand also that there's layers to that.
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
like, like I want to be compassionate.
Yeah.
But like, how do you reconcile that when you're dealing with people that clearly have blinders on and of course, now we're in the generation of like Oxford study. Everything's an Oxford study. God forbid.
Yeah.
And I hate that for Korean women or Asian women in general.
Yeah.
It's almost like I want to combat the idea. Asian women should be able to date and marry whoever they want, obviously, right?
Exactly.
But then you can't just ignore the dissonance that happens when they do get married to white partners and have access to privileges that they would not normally have. So, but
and
in
then
your
raising
own
multiracial children.
yeah, but in your own, like, you have all this knowledge, you have all this study, you're such an expert, you know, in your own field. How do you reconcile that in your personal life when you see these? Do you get irritated?
I mean, I wouldn't say I get irritated, but no, I love that you brought up the Oxford study, which is not even a real
piece.
It's not
like,
right. Oxford
study
is not.
It's a meme at this point.
It's a meme, and that was one of the main comments that I would get whenever I would talk about even like racism among Asian American or Asian American women's experiences on social media. Oxford study, right?
Yeah.
Even if I'm
You're
not
probably
even
married to a white guy,
that,
right?
it's like
no. Immediately.
No, yeah, and it's frustrating. I actually did make a couple of videos just showing some research in psychology showing that actually, I mean, mainly Asian American women, when you sample Asian American women, oftentimes the survey results show that they're most interested in their dating preferences dating other Asian American people. So that is actually usually the number one preference. But I think the main thing that you were saying is the blinders piece.
Yeah.
Colorblindness is kind of the main issue that I feel like instead of focusing on what exactly is the race of someone's partner, instead it's kind of interrogating someone's attitudes behind that, someone's attitudes about race in general, and colorblind attitudes, which is when one person denies that race matters, like all human beings should be, I don't see color. I don't see color, and I don't think racism is a big problem anymore. That's colorblindness at work. So in psychology, we study colorblindness. We have measures of colorblindness, and that's kind of the piece that predicts more dating preferences of white people, right? Because it's a form of internalized racism to just imagine, right, that race doesn't matter in our decisions, in our experiences, that racism doesn't exist. Clearly, racism is still a pervasive issue in our society, and so instead of kind of interrogating someone's dating preference choices, because people date people based on where they grew up, so many factors, right? Interests, so many things. Instead, it's really about like what is someone's psychological attitudes towards race and racism, and if someone is expressing a lot of, like your friend that you were saying, or someone in your circle saying like, oh, I just dated I'm married to a white man because why does it matter that I'm even married to one, right?
Yeah,
that's something you'd want to interrogate, in my opinion, versus kind of the choice itself, right? And I think that is something that when you kind of educate others about the harmful impacts of colorblindness, oftentimes they're more receptive to that versus like attacking someone's like life choices about who they date, because it's just one factor of someone's life, right? Like what friends do they keep? What kind of job do they have? Like, there's so many other pieces. Like, do they engage in any advocacy for groups? Like, there's so many other pieces to someone. Like, humans are so complex, and so that's something I always like to think through. But it's really important, especially if they start families too, right? Like, thinking about how race plays a role in your children's lives as multiracial children, right? That, I mean, 1 in 4 kids are multiracial in the U.S. now. Like, it's going to just grow and grow as a population. And psychology is pretty behind in understanding that experience too of multiracial Asian communities. So I think there's just a lot more work that needs to be done with that.
Yeah.
I have Korean Filipino boys, and one of them is going through the teen years, and it broke my heart when he came home and said, I don't like being dark because he tans easily. He's Korean Filipino, but he's probably like 3 shades darker than me. But I think he's, of course, beautiful. I mean, but like, what would your recommendation be? Obviously, I was like, you know what? You're handsome. Like, why do you think that? We talked about it, but he's just like, I don't know. I just don't.
How old is he?
13 going on 14.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, it starts so young. These internalized messages.
But he can't even, all of his friends are Vietnamese, Japanese, Chinese.
Interesting.
So they're lighter tone, and I think that you just and I recognize as a teenager, you just want to fit in.
Yeah.
You just want to be how your friends are.
Yeah.
And of course, he's into Japanese animation, which also has a fact. It's what he's around. And of course, then my thing is like, well, let me introduce you to more Filipino things and see how beautiful your own culture is. And your dad's, a beautiful dark man that I married. So, but I mean, is it just growth period? And like you said, just introducing and engaging, that is what it takes, right?
For sure. And naming it as that's colorism. That is colorism at play. That's what I guess the academic term for it.
I had to tell him that.
I mean, I wonder if even having that language can be helpful of like, this is a form of racism that is really common for especially within the Asian community.
You have internalized racism.
It's literally a
manifestation.
manifestation.
His fault. He
and it's
lives
not
in this
his fault.
racialized world where you're cast into these categories and there's virtue placed on, merit placed on the tone of your color.
And he's just responding.
So I think it's really
system.
helpful for you to acknowledge that and say, okay, this probably is where that's coming from. There's a long history of people who are of darker skin tones being discriminated against, and even within Korean culture.
But then it's a mindfuck kind of, right?
It is a mindfuck,
because even in Filipino culture, the celebrities are all light.
Indian culture, like South Asian.
So many Asian cultures, colorism is a huge problem.
I mean, you look at just like even K-beauty trends, like the tone-up sunscreen, right? Everything
whitening,
the whitening,
and literally, like the internalized racism research mostly has been done on Filipino communities, actually.
Wow.
Because of how much of impact colonialism has had on the Filipino experience. Colorism. And there's literally so many studies and measures about understanding the unique experience that Filipino Americans face when they internalize, they call it colonial mentality, where they internalize racism specifically of colonialism is about like making one group seem so much more inferior. Their whole culture, their whole appearance, their whole history is erased, right? And it's the Spain and U.S. impact on Filipinos. So it's a huge experience for a lot of Filipinos.
Yeah, and another way that manifests is people who have been here, Asian Americans who have been here for generations. Some of them tend not to acknowledge that there's racism or anti-Asian hate. Oh, I've never experienced that. What are we talking about? Like, no.
Or I think there's also like, if you feel like you've improved your life, there's no like, let me bring up the person.
Sure. And you see that in the conversations about ICE. Immigration, their stance on immigration policy.
It's like, I made it, so why can't
I did
you?
it the right way.
I followed all the rules.
Yeah, I followed the laws that you could just do it legally.
Buying into the model minority myth.
And that's really harmful.
Yeah. No, the model minority myth, again, it started in the 60s. Like that was when actually like a white sociologist coined the term in a New York Times article. Like Chinese and Japanese Americans, look at how, Japanese Americans in particular.
Took off.
Internment camps, like that was just a few years ago, and look at where they are now. Look at how hardworking and family oriented they are, and so look how successful they've become. They've overcome all barriers of racism. Is kind of how that has started, and it still is having those ripple effects today.
I don't think and I remember one of your videos talks about internalized racism, kind of recognizing that as a part of our identity, development of our identity. I don't think I had, obviously my identity as like I'm Korean. I always had that. But as an Asian American, I didn't have that until I was an adult. And I was working as a news reporter, and I got invited to join the Asian American Journalists Association. And I just could not understand what the value of that would be for me until I joined. And I was like, oh, so you mean that's not a unique experience to me where
Exactly.
I'm not getting hired or called back for interviews because that quota has been filled. Like they already
There's only room
have
for one.
like an Asian American anchor there, but then there's like 5 other on-air talent who are blonde, and to me they all look similar.
But that's never questioned.
Yeah.
That's never questioned.
Absolutely.
But yeah, one of my greatest regrets is never taking an Asian American studies class in college because I thought I already know that. I experienced that. And that's not what I'm paying, money, tuition for. It's like, oh my gosh, I should learn
100%.
something that I don't, so I studied English literature. You know what?
I
Like
took
English,
it.
I took.
You took it?
And that's what I admire about you.
No, and
but
I think
didn't
it's
have that
because-
curiosity. I questioned it as that's not what I'm that's not what I'm
Yeah.
That's
in
extra.
college
That's
for.
yeah.
Yeah.
No, but that's interesting that you thought that because we're not that far apart in age.
In age, yeah.
But I think my experience of coming from Korea, I felt really early on like I'm Korean American, but not Korean American enough to be thinking that's I felt so separated by that ideology of it. And so then I was like, oh, I gotta go to Korea now. Like for my instead of I debated going to Italy for my study abroad or Korea, and I was like, I feel like I owe it to my country to go do the Korea thing.
That's like a canon event for Korean Americans, right? Is to go to Korea and just experience again the dissonance of feeling like, oh, everyone looks like me. Also, I am not part of this society, right? It's a dissonant experience.
Such a
and I had the converse kind of experience because I was like, oh, I acknowledge that I'm Korean and Asian, but that part of me stays at home when I show up in the real world. That's not what people should see.
Sure.
Until I realized until I realized that's the first thing that people see.
Yes.
And that's the reason why you didn't get a call back or like or wondering like, is that the reason? Like that can't be. Like no, I thought they would judge you based on, your experience or your qualifications and
and it's not
there's
this,
so
like,
much. It's very complex.
It's really hard because we're like this is not some distant thing. Like literally just now, Atsuko, the comedian with the bowl cut.
I saw her bit about
was talking about she's in a lineup with Ali Wong, and they're like, wait, you
they
can't
separated
go right after
them.
Ali Wong.
Because
God forbid 2 back-to-back Asian comedians. Like, what will people do? Their brains will combust.
They will,
It's like, oh my,
we've all been mistaken as another Asian woman in your
absolutely.
space, right?
Yep.
So it's this real
even on
thing.
TikTok, right? Oh, you're that Korean mom on TikTok. Like, which one? What's my name?
Absolutely.
Right.
Yep. No, you were talking about like identity development. In psychology, we study racial identity development, and most psychologists have talked about it in stages, though it's not linear, right?
No.
But like one of the first stages is called conformity, where you're feeling like you're just imagining yourself as I'm almost the same as everyone else. Why am I being treated differently? Right? There's again that dissonance.
Yes.
All the way to what we call like the last stage, which is integrative awareness, where you're able to really integrate both your Korean and American, your Asian and American identities, and kind of take the best of both worlds with it.
Yeah.
So that's what we hope to kind of strive for as psychologists. It's like the racial identity development model, and it's a stage kind of development model, even though it's not linear, right? Like you can jump from stage to stage depending on kind of where you are in life, but that is kind of like a key post for us of like understanding like how can we take the best of both of our identities and cultures and integrate them rather than feel like we need to belong to one or the other.
I think I'm still struggling with that, living in a predominantly white neighborhood and raising kids there. I'm constantly questioning like, can I relish in like 4th of July traditions in my neighborhood, and my kids are in this stage of loving and being proud to be Korean, which I'm like, that's great.
That's beautiful. Yeah.
And then at the same time, they're like, oh, Mom, all the kids think that what I bring to lunch is called sushi. And I'm like, oh, what do you tell them? And they're like, oh, I tell them this is like the Korean version.
Korean
I'm like, okay,
sushi.
good. Yeah. Yeah, it's fascinating because it I see it being like a continuous thread. Like if it started with my grandparents who immigrated here, and then my mom kind of having to grapple with like the racism and being othered, and then me, who I felt I had a very like healthy childhood where I didn't question like my belonging, and then coming into that in my adulthood, like, oh, am I good enough? Am I, do I belong in these spaces? And then now raising kids who their like classroom makeup looks totally different from what I grew up with, and I'm like wondering, how is that going to play out?
Yeah. Yeah. Can I ask, because I've only lived in Seattle now 2.5 years. What is kind of, like the Asian American, Korean American kind of community like here?
Yeah.
What have you noticed in this particular like region? Yeah.
It's probably different from Ellen and mine. Yeah, we live near UW.
Okay.
So a lot of the Korean or Asian families, a good portion of them are international.
Oh,
so there's kind of a turnover, like a revolving door. So when I see Korean families, most of them are from Korea.
Okay.
And my kids have been like maybe one of a handful of Korean Americans.
Interesting.
I would say when we used to go to Korean church, that was a novel experience for them because they were like, oh, is everyone Korean here?
Yeah.
And then they loved it.
Yeah. Another canon event for Korean Americans, I think, right? To go to all Korean church, experience that for the first time.
And since I don't go to church, I'm pretty distant in the Korean American community, even though I have a lot of like I think church.
You feel like church is so tied to being Korean.
Oh, absolutely. Especially in Seattle. I think that's how people connect.
And not
here.
in a good way.
Yeah.
Like your association.
I quit the church.
Yeah.
I grew up in the church, Korean church. And it's such a bizarre experience to be of your community and then to feel so outcasted by your own community. So I told myself, never again.
Yeah.
Once I became an adult, I didn't want anything to do with the Korean church. It has such a chokehold on you as a like a cult, right? I mean, Korean churches have such a tie to cults. But being out of the church, I think that is a big unifier of Korean American communities here, and particularly in Seattle. Where I live in Issaquah, it's like the boonies and mostly white people of different sort.
Okay. White people of a different sort. Is that
like not like guns and in the woods. But yeah, my kids are, which is interesting because I grew up in Bellevue.
Okay.
Which is very Korean dominant.
Sounds like it. Yeah.
But when I was going to Newport High School, I was like one of the handful of Koreans.
Yeah.
And then by the time I graduated, there was like a full class of Koreans. And now it's Korean dominant. Yeah.
And I'm seeing the flip side of that in my hometown where it was like Bellevue when I was growing up.
Okay.
It was like Bellevue today. But now it is not the predominant, like
what
it is
area?
not Asian. It's Cerritos, California, like southern LA County, and a lot of, there's almost like been this migration of Asian American families out.
Oh wow.
And then it's more
Tony
South Asian or
from HOT went to Cerritos?
Who?
Tony from HOT.
Yes, of course I know that.
That's your school legacy.
Of course I know that. He went to the other school. He went to Ben's school.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
My school was not that school, but yeah.
No.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, as someone, I was born and raised in the U.S. I was born in Flushing, Queens. And then grew up like an hour outside of New York City.
Flushing.
Flushing, Queens. Yep. I love it. But I mean, I was one of few Koreans in my school, but there was a good amount of like Asian Americans, and that's where I like became interested in Asian American identity because most of my friends were Chinese, Filipino, right, Indian, Pakistani. So that's where I started to understand that, as well as me growing up as like a millennial, like YouTube and Asian YouTube was such a big, like that was our media representation. Like Wong Fu, if you guys know, like Wong Fu, that was my kind of, like way. And then seeing the rise of K-pop too over my years. So I feel like I really gained a strong sense of like Asian American identity there.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I feel like, and that is, I feel that might be more common for Asian Americans who grew up on the East Coast.
Yes, that too.
In my, growing up in the 90s and 2000s in LA, it was almost divided into like the different ethnic communities.
So interesting.
Yeah, and church had a lot to do with that.
Yes.
Yeah. We finally left Korean church in COVID, and I realized I don't want my kids there, even though there were definite merits of like, seeing themselves among Korean kids. And that's something that, I still grieve a little bit.
Yeah, there's a lot of grief with it. I mean, do you guys like speak fluent Korean too?
We speak, I
would say
we speak fluent Korean, but we don't.
No.
No.
And I was just going to raise that as something else that like, that's another reason why I feel like I identify more with being Asian American and Korean American because I don't speak my mother tongue. And it's a big grieving process of like,
it is.
It's something that I do want to, now that I'm like here in Seattle, maybe find like a Korean language class. It would be so cool if there was like a Korean American like group of people who are trying to learn their language.
My kids go to Korean school at Bothell.
Really?
I'll send you the link. And they have adult classes.
I was going to say, I don't want to be
Did your parents intentionally not teach you?
I don't think it was intentional. So my dad immigrated when he was 12. My mom immigrated when she was 19.
Oh, okay.
So they're quite Americanized. And my dad especially, he's very much more Americanized.
Yeah.
He actually was the first Korean American high school public principal.
Oh,
in
wow.
New York. Yeah. So really
what
proud
an
of him.
honor.
Yeah, like
that's amazing.
And so if he was a principal in a white dominant American
Dang.
Westchester, New York
Oh
high school, I mean, he's Americanized to that degree. And so my parents like will speak to me in a mix of English and Korean, and I'll respond in English.
Yeah.
So it's like I understand it, but I can't watch like a K-drama without subtitles. Like I can't hold a conversation fully in Korean. Like when I'm on the phone with my harmony, I'm like, nah, 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 like just so it's hard. But now living finally in like an area with a Korean American community, I want to take I want to take language lessons. I'm also really into music, so I take like traditional music. I'm learning Kayagum, Changu, and just being around more Korean people just is really healing. But it's also something where it's like I'm not Korean enough ever because I don't have the language and the experience.
Internalized racism comes up again because there's a level of judgment within our communities.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Now as moms, like I feel that judgment as, like why you guys both speak Korean, why do the kids not speak Korean? And I'm like, it's just it's not something that we intentionally set out to do or not do.
Yeah.
It just, I don't know, like the way we live. Like we don't, my husband's Korean, but we don't speak Korean to each other.
Right.
So we never did that with the kids, and now it's an uphill battle.
Exactly.
And
absolutely. And if I have children, right, like does it end with me? Like the understanding of Korean, right? Like that's a really sad thing to think about. I want to be able to impart kind of that cultural knowledge onto future generations.
Yeah.
So
and on that same token, it's like, yes, I am grateful that I can speak, but also that's not something that I'm grateful that I can speak, but just the way that I don't speak Korean with my kids, my parents didn't set out to like, okay, we're going to make sure that you don't lose your, it's just what they did. And we had just more exposure. And so, you know what I mean? So it's interesting when, people my age are like, oh, I resent my parents for not putting me in Korean school. And I'm like, it's nobody's fault, is it? Like
nobody's fault, right? I mean, they were surviving.
They were
They were in survival mode.
Even me, I'm at that kind of precipice of like, oh my God, do I continue with this for my middle schooler? Because he's not learning and he has other activities he wants to do on Saturdays. And, we have to make that decision.
Yeah, it changes with each generation for sure. But I mean, that's just such a good point of like, right, like for anyone who's experiencing like internalized racism, not to kind of put blame on that individual, but to see that as kind of a symptom of living in this world, right?
And there's a whole you know, even Ellen and I say we're both Korean American. We did not have the same experience.
Yeah.
Right. I was just going to say, my parents set out to make sure I spoke Korean. But it was also internalized racism in that, like, oh, you think you're better than me because you speak English at home? Like, you're going to be speaking Korean. They wanted to make sure that I knew my place because they were feeling so put down outside. And they were like, not in my own home.
Yeah.
My
the
kids
one
are
place
not
where I
gonna
can control it.
Yeah. And so it's like they had an active mission to make sure I spoke Korean for their own feeling of superiority, which they weren't getting outside the house. So that's fascinating, right? But I also am very aware of parents who intentionally did not teach their kids Korean because they didn't want them to ever be mistaken for not speaking good enough
English. Perfect English
Right.
accent.
Right.
Yep.
My mom got in trouble reading like Green Eggs and Ham. Like, you know, my grandpa was like, no, sorry. I think I'm mixing it up. Like she was not allowed to read like Korean like books, and she kept up with her Korean because she had like a pen pal. She would write to her friends, but her younger brothers, you know, they all eventually, you know, got much more comfortable with English, and that was the goal, is like speak English fast because, you know, we're in America now.
Yeah. And there's a privilege that comes with being able to speak like perfect, like without any accent, right? Like I believe that, like I have that privilege, right? There's a lot of, in academia, there's a lot of scholars who come from international scholars, right? And I think that, you know, sometimes maybe someone might look at me and think like, expect a certain accent, right? Even in this generation, and it's like no perfect English accent. That gives privilege of being able to be integrated into the mainstream more easily.
Yeah.
Well, you are such a delight.
Yes.
We can be your Korean speakers.
Please, my unnies.
we can have Korean speaking club.
Regular, like on the coffee time, lunch hour.
Anytime. And also would love to have you back.
I would
this
love to.
This was such a, like, we went everywhere.
Yes.
Truly.
We can learn so much. And you're only 30. My God. Wow.
Dr. Jaki. So you spell it like Jaki, but your full name is Jacqueline. And then are you on Instagram too?
Yes.
Okay. We will put all your handles on our podcast.
We're going to be waiting on that book.
Yes.
We're telling you right
the
now.
First ones I'll share it
Get on it. No,
Thank you so much for having me. And I'd love to be back. This was so much fun.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you.